Hey, for anyone who's watching, my name is Victoria and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we are jumping right into the video, starting off gluing down my eyebrows because I am doing a corpse bride makeup look today. So I went ahead and did my best to glue my eyebrows down, and now I'm setting the last layer with powder and just dusting that powder off. And then I am mixing together the LA Girl Pro Concealers, the shades of orange and yellow to kind of make a peachy tone to cancel out the coloring of my eyebrows. And then I'll just blend that out with a beauty blender and pack another layer of powder on. And after dusting away that layer of powder, I'm going to follow up by covering up the color corrector with the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer in Fair Warm, blending that out yet again with my beauty blender, and then setting that layer with more powder. And the powder I'm using today is the Pretty Vulgar Matte About It setting powder. And now here comes the fun part. I have the NYX SFX Cream Color Face and Body Paint, both in the shades of Bright and Primary, and I ended up mixing together the blue from the Brights and the white from the Primary to get this lighter shade of blue for her skin. So I am just painting this all over my forehead and really making sure there is plenty covering up those brows because my brows are dark and long and it's pretty hard to hide them. And then I'll just be taking my beauty blender and blending that all out down onto my eyelids. After that, I'm just going to heavily set my forehead, eyebrows, and eyes with that Pretty Vulgar matte setting powder. And then I'm going to take the LA Girl Pro Concealer in the shade Highlighter, which is a bright white shade, and placing that right in the center of my forehead, really to add some dimension, and then setting that with the same setting powder. Starting off with the shade Playground from the James Charles X Morphe palette, I'm going to be placing this shade right over my eyebrows, kind of creating a new crease for myself. That way I have more eyelid space to work with since her eyes are really big. And I'm really going to blend that in and feather out the edges quite a bit so it looks super seamless. Next, going in with the color Single from that same palette, and I'm going to place this color right below the blue shade, and it kind of was sticking to my eyelids, but that's okay. I'm going to cover it up anyways. And then I dipped back into that color Playground to just make sure those colors were really blended together well. Now I'm using the e.l.f. Liquid Glitter Eyeshadow in the shade Ocean Eyes to cut out my eyelid. And once I started working with this, I realized it probably needed a dark blue base to really make it pop and shine. I think it's more of a glitter topper because once I continued working with it, it kind of blended out into nothing. So I took my finger and kind of just blended it down, and then I used the wet eyeshadow palette from Bretman Rock and ColourPop and use the shade Mood to kind of top that over the liquid eyeshadow to really get that deep blue color I was looking for. I ended up using the Milani Hypnotic Lights in the shade Starlight to tap over top of the blue eyeshadow because I wanted something that was a little more iridescent and pinky purple to kind of help keep the look cohesive. Then I'm taking the Makiage ink liner in a black shade and lining my eyes and adding a pretty big wing. And then I topped that off with some Ardell Remy lashes, and they ended up being really fluffy and pretty and kind of the perfect shape for this eye look. Okay, deep breath, Victoria. I started by using that same felt tip liner to start drawing on the eyebrows, and this is completely new territory for me. I don't do drawings on my face ever, so I was really nervous about this, but when I got done with them, they definitely were not perfect, but overall I think that the shape was pretty good. They're very cartoony and almost kind of sad, I guess you could say. But like I said, I think they ended up turning out pretty decent. Here I can see myself trying not to freak out because this is uncharted waters for me. And to clean those up, I could just use the face paint, which was awesome. So next I am dipping into the shade Spooky from that same James Charles palette and using that to set the concealer I had put down earlier just to brighten that up a bit. Next, I'm going to take the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dream Glow Kit in the shades Unicorn and Ethereal and place that right under my brow bone. And next, taking the rest of that face paint and just covering the remaining portion of my face, trying to cover any part where my skin might be showing and getting that on there as evenly as possible. Then I am taking that same white concealer from earlier and placing that under my eyes, my nose, my chin, and right under my cheekbones, and blending that out with the Beauty Blender just to kind of create a highlighted appearance. And I took that same Pretty Vulgar matte setting powder and baked right under my eyes and on my smile lines by my nose, and ended up kind of baking heavily on my whole face. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going anywhere when I started adding more powders on top. And then I also took a fluffy brush and dusted a little extra on top. Now taking the NYX Jumbo Eye Pencil in the shade Milk and waterlining my lower lash line. And then I'm taking the shade Flashback from the James Charles palette and setting that in place. But I realized I wanted that bigger eye appearance, and so I used the NYX SFX face and body paint, and I used the white shade to really pull down that lower lash line and then just set that in place with more Flashback. Now using the shade Spooky to line right under that white paint where I had created a new lower lash line. And I'll also be taking those colors I used earlier on the top half of my eye, right under the new lower lash line, to blend it all out and make it look seamless and cohesive. So now going back into that same blue shade from earlier, I'm going to use this to contour and shade my face. And I'm going to use that same purple from earlier as well to do the same, just to kind of blend those colors together. And I'll also be taking the shade Spooky to really deepen up that contour and add some darkness and dimension into my face to help my cheekbones look really sunken in, because I have to keep in mind this is a glam version of her, but she still is dead after all. So really just using those three colors and blending them all together. I also took those same three shades and lightly contoured my nose. And here's where I made a mistake. I dipped into the shade Skip and tried to use that as a blush, but it ended up being really bright and clung to my blue base. So I didn't panic. I just grabbed my beauty blender, blended that into the rest of the contour I already had, and it ended up brightening up the purple quite a bit, which I ultimately liked. And so then I used the shade Literally instead for blush, and it ended up being really pretty, just putting that on my cheeks and on my nose. And going back into that Anastasia Beverly Hills Dream palette and using those same two shades as a highlight for all the high points on my face. And yet again, here is another mistake in the works. I wanted to add the tear on the side of my face that Emily has, but as I continued creating it the first go round, I tried adding teeth because in the movie version you can see her teeth through the cut, but the further I got into it, it looked way too cartoony and I did not like it. So you know what? It's okay. We're going to just attempt to keep going, and I still didn't like it. So ultimately, I ended up wiping it off, which was perfectly fine, but I decided to give it a second go and do another one, but thinner. And I actually got a lot further with the second go, adding some white highlights and outlining it with that felt tip eyeliner, but I didn't like that either. So I actually ended up just throwing out the idea of the face tear and just keeping the makeup really pretty and just seamless, and there is no face tear and that's okay. So you'll see me wipe it off here again in a second and just cover it up and keep on going. Now I'm just taking that blue face and body paint from the NYX FSX palette and putting that on my neck, some down onto my chest, and a little bit onto my shoulders. And then I'll set that with some setting powder. Then for my lips, I'm taking the Ciate Glitter Flip Liquid Lipstick in the shade Candy, and also topping that with Jeffree Star's The Gloss in the shade Succulent to give it an iridescent look. And I sprayed my hair with a blue temporary spray to get it that really vibrant blue color, and then topped it off with a flower crown. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. This look was truly a blast to create, and I've wanted to do this for years. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! And I'm back for just a second with my mom's reaction to my makeup look. She thought it was so freaking cool, and she's always so supportive. I love her so much.